This is Malala's speech to the United Nations. Dear brothers and sisters, do remember one thing. Malala Day is not my day. Today is the day of every woman, every boy, and every girl who have raised their voice for their rights. There are hundreds of human rights activists and social workers who are not only speaking for human rights, but who are struggling to achieve their goal of education, peace, and equality. Thousands of people have been killed by the terrorists, and millions have been injured. I am just one of them. So here I stand, one girl among many. I speak not for myself, but for all girls and boys. I raise up my voice not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights. Their right to live in peace. Their right to be treated with dignity. Their right to equality of opportunity. Their right to be educated. Dear sisters and brothers, we realize the importance of light when we see darkness. We realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced. In the same way, when we were in Swat, the north of Pakistan, we realized the importance of pens and books when we saw the guns. The wise saying, "The pen is mightier than the sword," was true. The extremists are afraid of books and pens. The power of education frightens them. They are afraid of women. The power of the voice of women frightens them. That is why they are blasting schools every day. Because they were and they are afraid of change and the equality that we will bring into our society. Dear fellows, today I am focusing on women's rights and girls' education because they are struggling the most. There was a time when women social activists asked men to stand up for their rights, but this time we will do it by ourselves. I am not telling men to step away from speaking for women's rights. Rather, I am focusing on women to be independent to fight for themselves. Dear sisters and brothers, now it's time to speak up. So today, we call upon the world leaders to change their strategic policies in favor of peace and prosperity. We call upon the world leaders that all the peace deals must protect the rights of women and children. A deal that goes against the dignity of women and their rights is unacceptable. We call upon all governments to ensure free compulsory education for every child all over the world. We call upon all governments to fight against terrorism and violence, to protect children from brutality and harm. Dear brothers and sisters, we must not forget that millions of people are suffering from poverty, injustice, and ignorance. We must not forget that millions of children are out of schools. We must not forget that our sisters and brothers are waiting for a bright, peaceful future. So let us wage a global struggle against illiteracy, poverty, and terrorism, and let us pick up our books and pens. They are our most powerful weapons. One child, one teacher, one pen, and one book can change the world. Education is the only solution. Education first.
This is Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the room. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Ye have heard that it was said of them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. and whoever shall say thou fool shall be in danger of hellfire. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Therefore, whoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon the house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone who heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, who built his house upon the sand. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and it beat upon that house. And it fell, and great was the fall of it.
This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's speech on unity. Are you all ready to fight for our rights? Are you all ready to say that in the United States of America, everyone is loved, everyone deserves justice, and everyone deserves equal protection and prosperity in our country? It is such an honor to be here, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're gathering here today, the weekend before Martin Luther King Day, because I believe that this moment and where we are right now is a reassurance of where the civil rights movement marches left off. And we are here to carry the torch forward, because when we talked about racial and economic justice, racial and social justice, we really started to extend those issues, the issues of economic justice, environmental justice, and the intersectionality and interconnectedness of all of our fights. Justice is not a concept we read about in the books. Justice is about the water we drink. Justice is about the air we breathe. Justice is about how easy it is to vote. Justice is about how much ladies get paid. Justice is about if we can stay with our children after we have them for a just amount of time. Mothers, fathers, and all parents. Justice is about making sure that being polite is not the same thing as being quiet. In fact, oftentimes the most righteous thing we can do is shake the table. Last year, we took the power to the polls, and this year we are going to take the power to the policy because we have taken back the House of Representatives. And that's just step one. This year, we are going to organize. This year, we are going to fight for voting rights. This year, we are going to keep pushing, because in 2018, we took the House of Representatives, and through 2020, we're going to take the White House and the Senate too. That's what we're going to do, because we need to advance and fight for an America where all people are welcome and no people are left behind. And I know that while this year has been historic, there's a lot more Congresswomen left here in the audience right now. There's a lot more city councilwomen. There's a lot more workers that will be building businesses. There's a lot more. And I know that there's a future president out here too. Let us remember that a fight means no person left behind. So when we want to stop talking about the issues that Black women face, when we want to stop talking about the issues that trans women or immigrant women face, we're going to ask them, why does this make you so uncomfortable? Because now, this is the time we're going to address poverty. This is the time we're going to address Flint. This is the time we're going to talk about Baltimore and the Bronx and wildfires and Puerto Rico. Because this is not just about identity. This is about justice. And this is about the America that we are going to bring into this world. Thank you all very much.
This is Steve Jobs, Stanford Commencement Address. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Waz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in the garage to a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We had just created our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I had just turned 30. Then I got fired. How do you get fired from a company that you started yourself? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone that I thought was very talented to run the company with me, and for the first year or so, things went well. But then our ideas of the future began to diverge, and we had a falling out. When that happened, our board of directors sided with him, and at 30 I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was now gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being handed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still love what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I had been rejected, but I was still in love, so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but being fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my entire life. During the next 5 years, I started one company called Next and another called Pixar. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer-animated feature film called Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the entire world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple. And now, the technology that we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. I'm pretty sure that none of this would have ever happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just keeps getting better as the years roll on. So keep looking until you find it. Don't settle.
This is Princess Diana's speech on women and mental health. Where do we start? From those I have spoken to through my work at Turning Point, the beginning seems to be that women in our society are seen as the carriers, the ones who can cope. Whatever life throws at them, they will always cope. On call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether their children are sick, husbands are out of work, or parents are old and frail and need attending. They will cope. They will cook, clean, go out to work, attend to the needs of those around them, and they will cope. They may be suffering themselves from postnatal depression, violence in the home, or struggling in days of exhaustion and stress from making ends meet. But they will cope. Many women and men turn to alcohol to numb the pain of their despair, but because it is seen in women as less acceptable to admit to a dependence on alcohol, it often goes unnoticed. They are merely perceived of having a rather nervous disposition. The suffering behind their anxious eyes often goes unseen. Sadly, for others, the strain becomes too much, and their decision to take their own life seems to be the only way to ease the pain. Perhaps they didn't believe they deserved the same support they had given to others. For decades, tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and antidepressants have been given to generations of women, 3 times as many as to men. These pills, these mother's little helpers, have left a legacy of millions of women locked into a terrible torment, doomed to a life of dependence from which there is very little help to escape. More often than not, they retreat to their own private hell behind closed doors, terrified to go out of their homes into what has become a frightening world. Dealing with these pills has now become a greater problem than the condition that caused them to happen in the first place. These pills will tend to make women more passive to help her conform to the norm. But whose norm is it? Isn't it normal not to be able to cope all the time? Isn't it normal for women as well as men to feel frustrated with life? Isn't it normal to feel angry and want to change the situation that has been hurting? Perhaps we need to look more closely at the cause of the illness rather than attempt to suppress it. To accept that putting a lid on powerful feelings and emotions cannot be the healthy option. That to offer women the opportunity to explain their predicament sooner could be a far more effective use of limited resources rather than wait until their strength to survive has been sapped. Women have the right to their own peace of mind. Each person is born with very individual qualities and potential. We as a society owe it to women to create a truly supportive environment in which they too can grow and move forward. But if we are to help the quiet, private, desperate lives lived behind closed doors by so many women, they need to know for certain that they are not alone, that the real support and understanding is there for them. Thank you.
This is Winston Churchill's Blood, Toils, Tears, and Sweat. On Friday evening last, I received from His Majesty the mission to form a new administration. It was the evident will of Parliament and the nation that this should be conceived on the broadest possible basis and that it should include all parties. I've already completed the most important task. A war cabinet has been formed of 5 members, representing with the Labour, Opposition, Liberals, and the unity of the nation. It was necessary that this should be done in one single day on account of the extreme urgency and rigor of events. Other key positions were filled yesterday. I am submitting a further list to the King tonight. I hope to complete the appointment of principal ministers during tomorrow. The appointment of the other ministers usually takes a little longer. I trust when Parliament meets again, this part of my task will be completed and all the administration will complete in all respects. I consider it in the public interest to suggest to the Speaker that the House should be summoned today. At the end of today's proceedings, the adjournment of the House will be proposed until May 21st with the provision for earlier meeting if need be. Business for that will be notified to MPs at the earliest opportunity. Now I invite the House by a resolution to record its approval of the steps taken and declare its confidence in the new government. The resolution that this House welcomes the formation of the government representing the united and inflexible resolve of the nation to prosecute the war with Germany to a victorious conclusion. To form an administration of the scale and complexity is a serious undertaking in itself. But we are in the preliminary stage of one of the greatest battles in history. We are in action at many other points in Norway and in Holland, and we have to prepare in the Mediterranean. The air battles continue, and many preparations have to be made here at home. In this crisis, I think I may be prosecuted or pardoned if I do not address the House at any length today, and I hope that any of my friends and colleagues and former colleagues who are affected by the political reconstruction will make all allowances for any lack of ceremony with which has politically necessary to act. I say to the House, as I said to the ministers who have joined the government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toils, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many months of struggles and suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I say it is to wage war by land, sea, and air. War with all might, with all the strength God has given us, and to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word, is victory. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terrors. Victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival. Let that be realized. No survival for the British Empire. No survival for all that the British Empire stood for. No survival for the urge, impulse of all ages, and that mankind shall move forward and towards his goal. I take up my business task in buoyancy and hope. I feel sure that our cause will not be suffered to fail among men. I feel entitled at this juncture, at this time, to claim the aid and all, and say, Come then, let us go forward together and with all our united strength.
Hello, I'm Shirley Chisholm, and this is my fight for the Equal Rights Amendment speech. Mr. Speaker, before us today, which provides for equality under the law for both men and women, represents one of the most clear-cut opportunities we are likely to have to declare our faith in the same principles that shaped our Constitution. It provides a legal basis for attack on the most subtle, most persuasive, and most institutionalized form of prejudice that exists. Discrimination against women solely on the basis of their sex is so widespread that it seems to many persons normal, natural, and right. Legal expression of prejudice on the grounds of religious or political belief has become a minor problem in our society. Prejudice on the basis of race is at least under systematic attack. There is reason for optimism that it will die with the present older generation. It is time we act to assure full equality of opportunity to those citizens who, although in a majority, suffer restrictions commonly imposed on minorities, to women. The argument that this amendment will not solve the problem of sex discrimination is not relevant. If this argument were to be used against the Civil Rights Bill, as it has been in the past, the prejudice that lies behind it would be embarrassing. Of course, laws will not eliminate prejudice from the hearts of human beings, but that is no reason to allow prejudice to continue to be enshrined on our laws, to perpetuate injustice through inaction. What would the legal effects of the Equal Rights Amendment really be? The Equal Rights Amendment would govern the relationship only between the state and its citizens, not relationships between private citizens. The amendment would be largely self-executing. That is, federal or state laws in conflict would be ineffective 1 year after date of ratification without further action by Congress or state legislators. Evidence of discrimination on the basis of sex should hardly have to be stated here. It is in Labor Department's employment and salary figures for anyone who is still in doubt. Its elimination will involve so many changes in our state and federal laws that without the authority and impetus of this proposed amendment, it will perhaps take another 194 years. We cannot be parties continuing a delay. The time is clearly now to put this House on record for the fullest expression of equality which our founding fathers professed. They professed it, but they did not assure it to their daughters as they tried to for their sons. The Constitution they wrote was designed to protect the rights of white male citizens, for there were no Black founding fathers. There were no founding mothers. A great pity on both accounts. It is not too late to complete the work they left undone. Today, here, we should start to do so. In closing, I would like to make one point. Social and psychological effects will initially be more important than legal or economical results. As Leo Conway said, as long as organized legal systems, at once the most respected and most feared of social institutions, continue to differentiate sharply in treatment or words between men and women on the basis of irrelevant, artificially created distinctions, the likelihood of men and women coming to regard one another primarily as a fellow human being and only secondarily as representatives of another sex will continue to be remote. When men and women are prevented from recognizing one another's essential humanity by sexual prejudice, nourished by legal as well as social institutions, society as a whole remains less than it could otherwise become.
This is Maya Angelou's on the Pulse of Morning. A rock, a river, a tree. Host to species long since departed. Mark the mastodon. The dinosaur who left dry tokens of their sojourn here, on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully. Come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spelling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out today, you may stand on me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. Come, rest here by my side. Each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me, when I and the tree and stone were one. before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sings and sings on. There's a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African and Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher. They all hear the speaking of the tree. Today, the first and last of every tree speaks to humankind. Come to me, here, beside the river. Plant yourself beside me, here, beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed-on traveler, has been paid for. You, who gave me my first name. You, Pawnee, Apache, and Seneca. You, Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold. You, the Turk, the Swede, the German, the Scot. You, the Ashanti, the Yoruba, the Kru, bought, sold, stolen, arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream. Here, root yourselves beside me. I am the tree planted by the river, which will not be moved. I, the rock. I, the river. I, the tree. I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, and if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private needs. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward. Here, on the pulse, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than to the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes, into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
This is Theodore Roosevelt's Decency and Strength. I'm particularly glad to see such a society as this flourishing, as your society has flourished, because the future welfare of our nation depends upon the way in which we can combine in our young men, decency and strength. Just this morning, when attending service on the great battleship Kearsarge, I listened to a sermon addressed to the naval officers and enlisted men of the Navy, in which the central thought was that each American must be a good man or he could not be a good citizen. And one of the things dwelt upon in that sermon was the fact that a man must be clean of mouth as well as clean of life, must show through his words as well as his actions, his fealty to the Almighty, if he was to be what we had the right to expect from a man wearing the national uniform. We have good scriptural authority for its statement that it is not what comes into a man's mouth, but what comes out of it that counts. I'm not addressing the weak, or I should not have taken the trouble to come here. I'm addressing the strong, vigorous men who are engaged in the active, hard work of life. I'm speaking to men engaged in the hard, active work of life, and therefore to men who will count for good or for evil. It is peculiarly incumbent upon you to have the strength to set the right example for others. I ask you to remember that you cannot retain your self-respect if you are loose and foul of tongue, that a man who is to lead a clean and honorable life must inevitably suffer due to his speech, likewise is not clean and honorable. Example is the most potent of all things. If any one of you in the presence of younger boys, especially the younger ones in your family, misbehave yourself, if you use coarse and blasphemous tongue before them, you can be sure that these younger people will follow your example, not your precept. It is no use to preach to them if you yourself do not act decently. You must feel that the most effective way in which you can preach is by your practice. I have told you that I wanted you not only to be decent, but to be strong. These boys
will not admire virtue of a merely anemic type. They believe in courage and manliness. They admire those who have the quality of being brave, the quality of facing life as life should be faced, the quality that must stand at the root of good citizenship in peace or in war. I want to see every able man able to hold his own with the strong and also ashamed to oppress the weak. I want to see each young fellow able to do a man's work in the world and a type which will not permit imposition to be practiced upon him. I want to see him too strong of spirit to submit to wrong, and on the other hand, ashamed to do wrong to others. I want to see each man able to hold his own in the rough work of actual life outside, and also, when he is home, a good man, unselfish in dealing with his wife, or mother, or children. We have the right to expect that you will come together in meetings like this, that you will march in processions, that you will join in building up such a great and useful association as this. And even more, we have the right to expect that in your own homes and among your own associates, you will prove by your deeds that it is not yours a lip loyalty merely, that you will show in actual practice the faith that is in you.